Bonjour, hi Canada. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Boy, it is grim in Florida as we continue to get more details of news. It is live on Friday morning, the 30th day of September, year of our Lord 2022. Ian has left the building, left Florida in ruins in a wide swath across the state. Governor DeSantis is surveying the damage, said it's almost indescribable, and more will come out today. I remind you of Team Rubicon, which will be dispatching, has already got people on the ground helping particularly older people, just clean up. 700 rescues have occurred. There are a couple of fatalities, but Governor DeSantis is urging caution on those numbers. We don't know which ones are storm-related. Harrowing stories of survival in the Washington Post. Many were just caught off guard. A large boat ended up, in a gas station at Fort Myers Beach. Nobody is really expecting for houses to float by in front of them, but it happened. Brett Baer's family, his brother-in-law, I think, escaped from a second-story window and then his house floated away. Talking with Brett last night. You saw him on the air. In fact, let's go right to last night. You know that the biggest story of the day and all weekend will be how bad is it? We don't know. It will hit Charleston, South Carolina around 2 p.m. this afternoon, having achieved hurricane status again of Category 1. Maybe it will get up to Cat 2. But it's going to be flooding in South Carolina, Georgia, and up into North Carolina this weekend. I was on Brett Baer's show last night. We were talking politics, and so let's go to Cut 13, where Brett asked me to survey the map.
There are some new polls out today. Ron Johnson in Wisconsin, in our latest poll, up 4. Tight race in Georgia. Your sense of things, you think Senator McConnell's seeing something behind the scenes?
As a Republican, I'm real happy, Brett, not only with the Fox polls. Ron Johnson beat Russ Feingold by 5 points 12 years ago. He beat him again by 3.5 points. Russ Feingold was a mainstream Democrat. Mandela Barnes is way out there on the left, and that's beginning to tell. And Ron Johnson is a heck of a retail politician, so I think that one's in the bag. Dr. Oz is surging. Herschel is surging. Pretty much Adam Laxalt in Nevada has got it in the bag. Blake Masters is behind but closing, and then Joe O'Dea and Tiffany Smiley in Colorado and Washington State, respectively. It's a good map for the Republicans. If you offered the objective observer, which one do you want? You want the Republican chances in a 50-50 Senate, or you want the Democratic chances? I think 4 out of 5 people would take the Republican chances walking away.
And then we came right back to it, cut number 14.
Hugh, besides the average tightening that happens as we get closer to election, what else do you think is shifting here? Obviously, the abortion issue and the Dobbs decision had an effect. We saw it in polls for Democrats for a couple of weeks. But in the past 2-3 weeks, it does seem to have shifted, and maybe crime and immigration has jumped up on the list.
And gasoline, Brett. In California, gas is back over $6 a gallon. Adam Laxalt told me on the air this morning gas is over $6 in Las Vegas. It's about $5.85 across the state. There's some states where it's close to $3.50, but the president keeps going out and saying in some places it's below $3 a gallon. That just doesn't line up with reality of the average voter. Add that in with the cost of food, as we've talked about on the show before, and inflation becomes the number one issue, and where it's not, it's crime. And those are issue sets on which Republicans don't really win, they dominate. So the flow is very good for the Republicans. 6 weeks is a long time, but the flow is very good.
After I had finished the show yesterday, I caught up with Juan Ciscomani, because I'm trying to talk to everyone I can. Juan is running in Tucson as a Republican in that district. Let's play that first part of the tape with Juan Ciscomani, who really is going to be a powerhouse in the House of Representatives for Republicans. Juan Ciscomani. Joined now by Juan Ciscomani. Juan is back. He is running for Arizona's 6th Congressional District. Good morning, Juan. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Your ears might have been burning yesterday. Soon-to-be Speaker McCarthy and I were talking about you. It feels very positive in Tucson, in the area surrounding Tucson. Tell us how the race goes.
Sure, yeah. Well, listen, we're out there working every day, earning every vote. As you know, this district is very much a swing district. Right about a third of the voters are Republican, Democrat, and Independent. So we don't take anything for granted. And we recognize that the race is going to be close, and that's how we're taking it. We're fighting out there every day for it.
Juan, what is the website? Because obviously the closest races need the most money at the end.
That's right. So my website is www.juanciscomani.com. That's JuanCiscomani. CISCOMANI.com.
JuanCiscomani.com. I'll put that on my Twitter feed. Juan, since we last talked, I picked up new affiliates in Amsterdam, Schenectady, New York, in Rhode Island. Tell people about your story and why you're such a compelling candidate.
Well, thank you. Thanks again for the opportunity. Listen, my family came from Mexico. We all immigrated here. When I was a young boy, that's where I was born. So I'm proud to say that when we win in November, we're going to be the first naturalized citizen in the history of Arizona to win a congressional seat here. And I'm proud of that. My family came here. They've worked hard their whole life, and so have I. My dad has been a bus driver since I can remember, first for the school district and then for the city. And he told me, right before we launched the campaign, he said, Juan, where else could we have our story? We come to the country, immerse here in the culture, learn English, become U.S. citizens. He said, I drive a bus my whole life, and then my son has a shot at becoming a member of the United States Congress. He said, where else in the world can this be? And the answer is nowhere else, and that's the American dream, Hugh, the one that I'm running on, not based on money defined by financial success or even position, just your ability to go out and get what you want to and be free in doing so. And that's, in my mind, the American dream. My dad is living it. I am living it in different ways. And that's what I want to defend and fight for my kids. I have 6 kids, as you know, and Laura is also a first-generation American, my wife. And that's what we're fighting for. We want to make sure that our kids and your kids and everyone has a shot at the American dream the same way that we did.
So, Juan Ciscomani, I always list the issues for every candidate are inflation, crime, migration, and education. You've got 6 kids. I don't know how Tucson schools are. I don't know, but I don't want anyone to vote for any incumbent on a school board unless they are absolutely rock solid on keeping schools open and never mandatory masking again. What do you think of the Tucson school system, and how's that playing into your race?
Well, I'll tell you what, Arizona has the best, we have the best choice in schools in the nation based on our ability to choose whether you want to go to a district school, a charter school, a private school, and we have that. And that has increased the competitiveness within schools. There's always more improvements to be made everywhere, but I got to tell you, schools really have to focus on teaching the core classes of math, of science, of reading, and this is where we gotta go. And that's what we support. We support that choice and for parents to be able to make those decisions and not the unions. And that's been the main battle, unions versus parents. And obviously, as a parent, I want to make sure that the choice and the decision stayed with us at the home.
So, Juan Ciscomani, obviously you're fluent in Spanish. Are you up on Spanish language television and radio? Because every candidate, tell us about that.
That's a great question, and I love that question because really it is important to reach out to everyone. We have a good section of our district being Hispanic, and some are bilingual, and some prefer Spanish, some prefer English, and that's just the nature of the diversity within the Hispanic community. But it's always important to reach out to everyone in the best ways that you can. We held our first meet and greet which was completely in Spanish with business leaders that have immigrated here and now own properties and hotels downtown, and they've been very successful. And there were about 55 of them there, and they asked me to just keep it all in Spanish. They were going to bring their families, their spouses, and we did. And it was great to see this opportunity of doing this. Every ad that we put out also you'll see it on my feed is in Spanish as much as it is in English. And it's not a translation in the sense of the subtitles. It's on camera, the same exact message that we give in English, we give in Spanish, because people ask me all the time, hey, what are the Hispanic issues? And I tell them, listen, there are issues that impact all of us. There are no specific Hispanic issues. There are just issues that we all, right now, we're all paying the same thing for gas, for milk, for utilities. And we just got to reach out in a culturally sensitive way to our Hispanic community. And that's what I'm able to do because I'm obviously bilingual and I grew up in a home where Spanish was the first language. And that's what I'm teaching my kids as well.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, right there. We'll be back with more from Juan Ciscomani after this. I do want to let everyone know a judge has overruled one of the rulings of the special master in the Trump case. I want you to know that, and we still don't know what that means. The Senate has approved stopgap funding for the government, so the government will be funded through December 16th. Mortgage rates are up to 6.7%. I talked with Andrew Del Rey last night at length, 888-1172. If you need a reverse mortgage because your budget is broke, call up Andrew and Todd today. That's 5 out of 6 callers are calling for reverse mortgages from the senior community, 888-1172. And then Putin, more people continue to run away than they do sign up. Russia is suffering a defection of its citizenry from their war efforts. Stay tuned.
Important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. And
all right, the Vice President of the United States doesn't even know which Korea we have an alliance with. The movie Dumb and Dumber came out years ago. I just note that. Let's go back to my conversation with Juan Ciscomani from yesterday. Yeah, I want to close by inflation and groceries. My daughter has 4 kids. I have 5 grandchildren, 4 of them in one family. And she talks to me about the shopping cart bill. I don't know what it costs for 6 kids, Juan. I can't imagine what the food bill is.
Yeah, it costs a lot more than they used to. I'll tell you that. Well, we're having to make choices like everyone else, especially when you have to balance food with clothing as well for kids, and they grow out of it so quickly. We just had to buy back to school clothes as well. They want to play sports. All these things add up, and when you're making the same amount of money, or in some cases less because it goes not as far, these are tough choices that families have to make, and I can totally relate. When you have 6 kids, mine are little. They're 13, the oldest, 3 is the youngest, and we're in the nick of it as well. We just cut off the diaper stage, which was a big boost for our income, and I mean our disposable income, because we just were able to not spend money on diapers. But I got to tell you, it's not what it used to be a year ago, and today the cost of living is so much higher, and you feel the pain, you feel the pinch, and you're having to make choices. Done that this whole time. I don't think they've been successful. I think the American people are very smart, and they know exactly who cost is, because we can just compare what we were 2 years ago and what we are today. So I'm very optimistic that they're going to notice that, but it's going to take people like you, people like me in different ways and different platforms to be talking about our plan, what cost is, and then our plan to get things back in order. And that's when Leader McCarthy's plan of the commitment to America comes in, that I'm very proud of, and actually talking about quite a bit wherever I go.
So let's just repeat. What's the website, Juan Ciscomani?
The website is juanciscomani.com, JuanCiscomani.com.
JuanCiscomani.com. Juan, keep coming back, keep pressing the flesh, and I'll talk to you as we get closer again. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Hugh.
Goes for Senate in Washington State. Welcome back, Tiffany Smiley. How goes the campaign?
Hi, Hugh. Thank you so much for having me on. It is going well. We are gaining ground every single day, holding Patty Murray accountable, sharing our mission, our vision and hope for Washington State, because it is time that we turn crisis into hope. We have, so many issues going on in Washington State that Senator Murray has caused, is failing to address, and we have the solutions. We have the highest crime that we've had in 30 years. Highest homicide rates that we've seen since they started recording them in 1980. Grocery prices are up, gas prices are up, and there's no plan, no solution in sight.
Tiffany Smiley, the election and the control of the Senate will come down to the Pacific time zone. When Nevada had Adam Laxalt on yesterday, Arizona had Black Masters on this week, and then Tiffany Smiley in Washington State, the results come in. We being Republicans, have to win 2 out of those 3. I think you're probably the second one right now. I think Adam may be actually ahead, and you're closing. How do you feel about it, the closing kick?
Oh, I feel great. We are catching momentum at exactly the right time. It's just evidence of our hard work that we've put in, listening to voters over the last 17 months. And politics is about catching momentum at the right time. We are holding Patty Murray accountable. Most recently, the Washington Post called her out for her lies. She got 4 Pinocchios for lying about her coverage of Medicare prescription drugs. And so we will keep sharing our message of hope for Washington State. It is time to turn the page. Washington voters do not have to live in the state that we're currently in. Patty Murray's agenda is to tax and spend. She was the deciding vote on the excise tax on natural gas. That will cause energy prices to go up heading into winter. And it's enough. Enough is enough. She's been there for 30 years, and we're not any better off because of it.
Talk to me a little bit
Yeah.
about just mechanics. You got Washington is 2 states. It's the western part, and then it's Kings County. It's everybody but Kings County, and then it's Kings County. How are you doing in both of those areas?
I'm doing great. I spend time in Eastern Washington, and I spend time in King County. In fact, yesterday I was in King County helping clean up a homeless encampment, doing harm reduction and talking with residents, talking with, those in the homeless encampment, connecting with voters. So we are doing well. We're sharing our message. We're talking about the messages that are affecting people every single day. Unfortunately, Patty Murray fails to address any of that or be visible, or act like she, even cares. Truly, she's disappeared. She's non-existent in our state. So we're gaining ground in all of those areas. Hugh, these aren't Democrat or Republican issues. They're American issues. And it's about livelihood. It's about quality of life. It's about lowering grocery prices and ensuring that every Washingtonian has life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Tiffany Smiley, what's the website if people want to help you? Because it's an all-mail campaign. It's one of the states that bug me because I hate all-mail campaigns, but that's what it is. How do people help you?
It is, and we need your help. This will take all hands on deck. This isn't just about Washington State. This is about our country. This is about getting the right people in Congress who will do the work. So anyone can join us, learn more about my story at smileyforwashington.com, all spelled out, smileyforwashington.com.
Tiffany Smiley, thank you. Keep coming back and stay out there on the campaign trail. I know you're working hard.
We will. Thank you, Hugh.
Studio North, Senator Tom Cotton is my guest. Good morning, Senator Cotton. How are you?
Good morning, Hugh. It's good to be on with you.
I understand the CR is put to bed. Does it include funding for Florida and Puerto Rico, or will the Senate and the House have to return to that after the damage is assessed in the lame duck session?
Hugh, there's some funding for disaster relief. There's not specifically funding for what's happened with Ian and the tragedies we see in Puerto Rico and Florida. In part, that's obviously because it's happening as we speak. We haven't assessed those needs, but I believe that a reasonable bill requesting support for our fellow citizens in Florida and Puerto Rico will probably pass in the lame duck session after the election to make sure that we're taking care of all those who've just been devastated by this terrible storm.
Senator, on the CR, as you know, military pay is ridiculously behind inflation. Did it make up the gap at all, or is that something for when the Republicans regain control of Congress?
No, Hugh, that normally happens under the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, which Chuck Schumer has once again scandalously delayed until after the election. In fact, I doubt we'll even debate it on the Senate floor itself, just like last year. We'll do a quick huddle with the House after the election and try to rush to get it passed for now going on in the sixth decade, because Chuck Schumer and the Democrats don't prioritize national security. They prioritize their blowout spending bills that have brought us 13% inflation. That means that troops and their families are going to struggle to make ends meet for another 2 months at least.
Senator, I was on with Brett Baer last night, and Brett asked me on Special Report to summarize the map, how I thought it felt. Let's play cut number 13 from last night and then have Senator Cotton critique my guesstimates.
There are some new polls out today. Ron Johnson in Wisconsin, in our latest poll, up 4, tight race in Georgia. Your sense of things, you think Senator McConnell's seeing something behind the scenes?
As a Republican, I'm real happy, Brett, not only with the Fox polls. Ron Johnson beat Russ Feingold by 5 points 12 years ago. He beat him again by 3.5 points. Russ Feingold was a mainstream Democrat. Mandela Barnes is way out there on the left, and that's beginning to tell. And Ron Johnson is a heck of a retail politician, so I think that one's in the bag. Dr. Oz is surging. Herschel is surging. Pretty much Adam Laxalt in Nevada has got it in the bag. Blake Masters is behind but closing, and then Joe O'Dea and Tiffany Smiley in Colorado and Washington State, respectively. It's a good map for the Republicans. If you offered the objective observer, which one do you want? You want the Republican chances in a 50-50 Senate, or you want the Democratic chances? I think 4 out of 5 people would take the Republican chances walking away.
Senator Cotton, do you agree with my assessment?
Hugh, that's a pretty good assessment of our map. I'm confident we're going to win all the seats that we currently hold, whether it's Mehmet Oz picking up Pat Toomey's seat in Pennsylvania, J.D. Vance picking up Rob Portman's seat in Ohio, Ted Budd picking up Richard Burr's seat in North Carolina, and Ron Johnson is definitely pulling away from Mandela Barnes. One of the reasons why we're doing so well in those states is the Democrats have nominated radical ideologues like John Fetterman in Pennsylvania and Mandela Barnes in Wisconsin that want to do things like eliminate long sentences for murders or let out half of all prisoners or eliminate cash bail, to say nothing of the terrible inflation they've imposed on working families. And then you get to the seats where we're on offense, and again, you hit the nail pretty much right on the head. Herschel Walker in Georgia, Adam Laxalt in Nevada are surging, in my opinion. Blake Masters, Don Bolduc still have a great shot to win in Arizona and New Hampshire. And I think Joe O'Dea in Colorado and Tiffany Smiley in Washington State remain somewhat sleeper races in Washington. But I can tell you what, they're not sleeper races out in those states. I was with Joe O'Dea earlier this week, and he's got Michael Bennet on the run because Michael Bennet votes with Joe Biden 98% of the time. And a vote for Michael Bennet is a vote for Joe O'Dea in Colorado, or is a vote for Joe Biden in Colorado, and people in Colorado are tired of Joe Biden.
Brett asked me as well, I'm not going to play the tape, what's going on in the late surge? It's gas prices, it's food prices. It's always back to the economy and your wallet. And Senator Cotton, I don't know what it's like in Arkansas, but in California, every morning I have to listen to Dwayne moaning and groaning about $6.50 gasoline again.
Yeah, and in Hugh, when I was in Colorado, gas is sneaking back up to $4 a gallon. They've got a very bad fentanyl problem there. Colorado is now setting the pace in America. They're the number one state for car thefts. Not exactly what you want to be the number one state for, but it's because of Democrats' radical pro-crime policies that states like Colorado, or for that matter, like Pennsylvania, are seeing crime waves that Democrats are going to be held accountable for in November.
Senator, yesterday, Leader McCarthy was on with me outlining the commitment to America. The one thing we talked about that I really, really like is they're going to put up a select committee on China that may become a standing committee. I don't know that Leader McConnell or the caucus wants to do that, but a laser focus on China over the next century is going to be absolutely necessary. What do you think of the select committee in the House that Leader McCarthy is going to put together?
I think that's a good idea in the House, Hugh. Select committees are a little more common in the House because they're so large and helps bring focus to a single issue. In the Senate, given our smaller size, select committees are not as common, but I can promise you that under Republicans, my work on the Armed Services Committee, my work on the Intelligence Committee, my work on the Judiciary Committee is going to be laser focused on a rising China that threatens America's safety and prosperity and freedom. And I know that's the case for a lot of my Republican colleagues as well. In addition to the new Republican senators we're going to be adding who share our views about the Chinese communists.
Now, Senator, I think along with your fellow big law lawyers, Josh Hawley and soon to be Eric Schmidt, and there are a few other of them in the Senate, we've got to get our arms around big tech. And I know that Leader McConnell knows that, and especially TikTok and the agencies of the Chinese Communist Party. Whose committee is that? Is that Judiciary? Will you be in part of the vanguard to bring the Chinese penetration of our intellectual property, AI, and quantum computing under control?
Well, Hugh, first off, I want to address this calumny of calling me a lawyer. I've been clean now for almost 18 years. So please don't cause me to have a relapse. But no, on the Judiciary Committee, yes, you'll see a lot of action trying to rein in some of the excesses of big tech. There are other committees that have jurisdiction as well, but Judiciary Committee has primary authority over antitrust, and that's where I think most of the action will be. For instance, I have a bill that would stop these giant tech companies from growing simply by acquiring would-be competitors. That once they get to a certain size, mergers and acquisitions are no longer permitted because it's what a lot of them do. They see a competitor rising and they simply buy them out with their mountains and mountains of cash, given their business model generates so much free cash to invest in other ventures. It's one thing if they want to keep growing organically. It's another thing for them simply to buy out any would-be competitor and then kind of take that into their giant operations and doesn't have any incentives to deliver better products and services for the American people.
So, Senator Cotton, two very quick things, and I'll let you go. Google, Ronna McDaniel is out this morning saying Google is muffling RNC messaging, and I don't think Ronna makes stuff like that up. And everywhere I go, and I'm going to go out on a barnstorming tour, I hear about the Zuckerberg boxes. I think Mark Zuckerberg dug Meta a hole out of which they're never going to get. What is your advice to Silicon Valley in anticipation of the regulation that is coming in election 2022? I just don't think Zuckerberg or Eric Schmidt or anyone from these companies can repeat the mistakes of the past.
My advice to any business leader, and I've given it to many of them, is to remember what Michael Jordan said. Republicans buy sneakers too, and Republicans vote in elections. And while the left may control the media and corporate America and Hollywood and big tech and college campuses, the one thing they don't control is the elected parts of our government. And when our voters make it clear they are tired of having big tech companies suppress their views, or for that matter, having big corporate executives use their corporate power to weigh in for left-wing causes, they should expect a backlash. So if you stick your nose where it doesn't belong, don't be surprised if it gets punched.
Now, if you remember antitrust dimly from long ago in Harvard Law, I don't know how there are only two proxy advisory services in the world. I do not know how ESG has come to take over the country. It just seems like an antitrust investigation waiting to happen. It will not happen in this DOJ, Senator. It's got to come from the Senate.
No, it won't. And the ESG movement, it's really a climate cartel and a scam. And I've taken several steps already to put people on notice, like Larry Fink at BlackRock, that when Republicans take back power, we're going to dig deep into it. Because when you have just a handful of firms, engaging in what is in effect a boycott of the fossil fuel industry, that is almost by definition a violation of the antitrust laws, and it could very well be a criminal violation. So some of these people may want to think about the risk that they're going to be wearing a different kind of pinstripes in a few years.
I want to close by saying, Senator, let's just get on your agenda for after the election. Thus far, no one from the Guardians has offered me tickets to the championship series in Cleveland, October 6th, 7th, and 8th. I think we're going to need an investigation into that. Are you a Braves fan, by the way, Senator? Are you Atlanta Braves fan?
Well, like any kid that grew up with TBS, I respect the Atlanta Braves, and I wish them very well in their big series against the Mets this weekend.
I thought maybe an Arkansas person would be a Braves fan, but I just think we need to look into why the Guardians are not forthcoming with tickets. Senator Tom Cotton, thank you. I'll be right back, America, on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Dr. Oz, GOP nominee for Senate in Pennsylvania. Good morning, Dr. Oz. Welcome back to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Thanks for having me back, Hugh.
I've got to ask you this. The latest poll, the Emerson poll this morning, has John Fetterman at 44.6 and you at 42.6. That's statistically insignificant margin of error. I went back and looked at all the RCP polls. The direction is heavily in your favor. The tide is just flowing to Dr. Oz. What do your internal numbers show?
Similar. There is a significant momentum shift in our favor. I attribute it to our focus on issues that are really petrifying Pennsylvanians. The remarkable crime rate that we're experiencing around the Commonwealth, with Philadelphia having the highest homicide rate ever in its history. Yesterday, we had our 1,000th carjacking. Can you imagine? These numbers are shocking. We have the largest open-air drug den in the country in the center of Philadelphia, where Rocky used to run. So when you look at my opponent's perspectives on these issues, he's been on the wrong side of policy. He wants us to release 1/3 of all prisoners. He feels strongly about getting murderers who've been sentenced to life in prison out of jail, even over the objections of other Democrats in the parole board. He wants to legalize all drugs, have heroin injection sites, wants an open border so fentanyl can flow easily with cartel dollars funding it. These are the positions that have put him in a very awkward spot at a time in our history when we cannot afford to make these mistakes. And they're representative, I think, of many of the policies he's advocated for, which sounds great when you're speaking to the far left radical component of the Democratic Party on Twitter, right? 140-character policy doesn't work. It has to be more thoughtful. And I'm putting those ideas out there, and the people of Pennsylvania are resonating to them.
Dr. Oz, I want to talk specifically about inflation and crime. The other big ones are, of course, immigration, the education breakdown in China. But let's focus in on inflation. From Scranton to Pittsburgh, I'm talking to every Pennsylvania right now. And up in Erie, we all know what the cost of living has happened. How often is that the number one issue that comes up at a campaign stop? Because I know you're out there doing retail campaigning.
Oh, it's the number one issue, without question. And it's another place where I have an advantage because the Democratic Party has spent our children's money recklessly. Interestingly, my opponent, John Fetterman, has strongly criticized Biden for not spending enough money, for not going further enough towards his idol, Bernie Sanders. And interestingly, even though we've spent billions and trillions of dollars, haven't been able to fix the problems they claim to fix, but we have spent money and created inflation. He also thinks fracking is a stain on Pennsylvania and signed a document asking for a moratorium on drilling. And that's a death wish for this Commonwealth. We live on our energy. You can't manufacture in Pennsylvania without energy to make it affordable for the big factories and for the agricultural folks. They need it. We need it for plastics. You know, the reality is you have to have inflation brought under control. And to do that, you're going to have to allow us to use clean natural gas, which also helps our environment. My opponent doesn't want any of that. I argue I want an all-of-the-above policy. Give me all the energy sources, including green, so that we can keep our environment pristine, but also allow working-class taxpayers to make a living, feed their families, and live with the vitality they desire. Again, another topic which is really scaring people at the kitchen table. And I'll leave you with taxes as the idea that's become very prominent now because people are fearful. They have high tax rates already. Fetterman wanted to 50% increase in state taxes, but he also strongly supported the Biden tax increase. Yet he has not paid his own taxes 67 times. I'll say that again. He's had 67 liens on him for not paying his own taxes. So the hypocrisy there strikes Pennsylvanians, who are pretty straightforward, family value people, strikes us as completely out of touch, and it's hurting him.
Now, Dr. Oz, I got to ask you, you are a phenomenal success. People know you from television. Of course, your medical career, you're born in Ohio, so you had a head start over everybody. However, you're a new candidate, first time. I've listened, I've watched, you've hit your stride. What surprised you the most about learning how to campaign? It's a skill set. You had to pick it up. You had to learn it. What surprised you the most?
What surprised me the most was so much of it is fifth-grade antics. It's gossipy ideas thrown out there to distract the press from the real profound issues that you just mentioned. The economy, crime, the border, China, education. These are topics that are vital for us to address, and we're not going to get there by bickering about the stuff that is designed primarily to mudsling, because all that does is attract press attention, but it doesn't deal with the deeper challenges that I know we can address as a country. That's the kind of senator I want to be. And I've told my opponents, go ahead and whine and complain about me and make ad hominem attacks, and that's what he does. But
candidates matter. Leader McConnell always says candidates matter. Candidates have to like people. They actually have to. I don't know that John Fetterman likes people. I feel sympathy for him. You're running into the sympathy headwind because he's clearly disabled, and it will be a long time till he recovers his complete cognitive abilities. But there's this sympathy value. At the same time, he's not very likable, even when he was healthy.
I hear that from folks who know him. And again, I've never met him, so I can't speak to that personally, but what I can speak to is me. And I love people. I'm passionate about people. The reason my TV show was a top health show in the world for 13 years is because people trust that what I'm telling them matters, that I'm doing my best to help them. And that's what they look for in a political leader. They know we're not going to agree on 100% of items. They want to know when they go to bed at night, they trust that I'll make the best decision for them and their family, and that I'll always work my tail off for them. That's what I've done my whole career in practicing medicine, on the show, now running for office. That's something that John Fetterman has not convinced them that he's done, because in many cases he hasn't done those things. Yeah. So I think I have an advantage.
You had an ad out, I don't know if you're still running it, during a town hall when the mother of a police officer who goes to work every day comes up. You put her, she's just upset because people are hating on the police on the Democratic Party side. That was extraordinarily effective. Are you running with that? Do you have the money and the resources to close the last 4 weeks?
We've gotten tremendous support from the national party. I put money in myself. The funding is coming nicely. But, guys, we need to keep up with the Democratic Party. So if you have the opportunity, please go to droz.com. Try to send us whatever you can. The Democratic Party is raising money primarily from California and New York because they want the 51st seat. They actually don't know my opponent. If they did, they probably would pull back from what they're doing. But if I can spend even 70% of what he spends, we'll win, because as you pointed out, it takes a lot of money to sell something you don't have. They don't have a good candidate. We have a great candidate. I'll protect our nation.
Last question. You're a Penn guy, and I don't know how many years you spent there, whether it was 4, 7, 9. I don't know how long you spent in medical school there, but Penn is not exactly a red bubble. Are you going to campus at all to go deep into the heart of Democratic territory and try and win over marginal votes? Because that's how blowouts happen.
That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to talk to folks, and I'm talking to media that's in the middle as well, to make sure that folks appreciate the rational approaches I'm going to take. I was in Kensington, the biggest drug market in the country now, and I went there saying specifically, Republicans don't come here, and we should, because we love people, and these people are in trouble because they're on drugs, strung out. Democrats, however, don't come here because they're ashamed of what their policies have created. I care a lot about fixing problems. The Democrats stop short. They care about caring. And when I was down there, Hugh, I had 4 addicts come up to me, recognizing me as a doctor, begging for help to get them into detox. That's what we should be doing as a Republican Party. My father, who was an immigrant to this country, grew up on a dirt floor, brought here legally because we wanted that kind of learned individual. He studied medicine. When we decided to be Republicans as a family, my dad said we were going to become Republicans because they have better ideas. Let's be the party of better ideas.
DrOz.com. Now, on Twitter, it's just Dr. Oz, but his website, the campaign website, I believe, is all spelling out Dr. Oz. Am I right about that, Dr. Oz?
Thank you for saying that. Yes, DOCTOR, Oz.com. Lots of information about my positions, and please help us financially. Put us over the top.
Thank you, Dr. Oz. Keep coming back. Pennsylvania listens to the Hugh Hewitt Show, and I think they are getting, this momentum is undeniable. I was talking to Brett Baer about it last night. You can, in fact, I want to play that again. This is, I'm on special report last night, and Brett asked me about the Senate map, cut number 13.
There are some new polls out today. Ron Johnson in Wisconsin, in our latest poll, up 4. Tight race in Georgia. Your sense of things, you think Senator McConnell's seeing something behind the scenes?
As a Republican, I'm real happy, Brett, not only with the Fox polls. Ron Johnson beat Russ Feingold by 5 points 12 years ago. He beat him again by 3.5 points. Russ Feingold was a mainstream Democrat. Mandela Barnes is way out there on the left, and that's beginning to tell. And Ron Johnson is a heck of a retail politician, so I think that one's in the bag. Dr. Oz is surging. Herschel is surging. Pretty much Adam Laxalt in Nevada has got it in the bag. Blake Masters is behind but closing, and then Joe O'Dea and Tiffany Smiley in Colorado and Washington State, respectively. It's a good map for the Republicans. If you offered the objective observer, which one do you want? You want the Republican chances in a 50-50 Senate, or you want the Democratic chances? I think 4 out of 5 people would take the Republican chances walking away.
I just think that is the case.